Happy Death Day is a so-called horror movie that is produced from Blumhouse Productions. And what you really just need to know about this is that it's a slasher version of Groundhog Day. Now, I've never really been a gigantic fan of Blumhouse Productions. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've liked, quite a bit of the stuff that they've produced, but in my opinion, some of the stuff can be hit or miss. The quality of films that they release can range from shit like Incarnate, all the way to like great films like Whiplash. If I'm looking for a studio that's more consistent with the quality of the stuff that they're pumping out, I would probably go more towards A24 than to go to Blumhouse. That's just me. Happy Death Day kind of falls like in the middle between that Blumhouse spectrum that I just said. Like it's not utterly terrible, but it's also not very good either. But I mean, technically when it comes down to it, I thought this movie was going to be garbage. Like when the trailer came out, I was like loathing this movie. I was like, oh my god, this looks so generic. It looks so rip-offy from Groundhog Day. This looks just like a giant cash grab to get teenagers into the theaters. And then exactly when I heard that it was PG-13, I was like, oh god, this is definitely a teenage horror movie cash grab, like wish upon, that I'm gonna loathe and I'm gonna fucking hate.
Bye.
But I really didn't hate it. It's really not, it's not that bad of a movie, but like I said, it's not great either. Now, the first act of this film is the strongest act of the film, in my opinion. It's the act where I was the most invested, and I actually did kind of care about what was going to unfold in the next two acts. The first act just had like a more consistent sense of tone. Like it seemed like it established itself. There was an eeriness to it. Some of it was comical, sure.
Bye.
But there was some sort of consistency with it, and I thought it was going to go a certain way, and it was going to kind of stick with that tone. But as it progresses to the second act is the worst act in the movie. The second act was just a mess. It was directionless. It was aimless. You felt like it was like you're sitting there for 30 to 40 minutes just wondering, like, is this film going to really get anywhere? Like, where is this film heading to? This film gives you no, like, beacon to, like, give you an objective. Like, oh, this film is eventually going to get to there. Like, no, it just gives you nothing. Like, this girl's kind of running around, like, chasing her tail for 35 to 40 minutes of the movie. And I don't know, it just gets repetitive. And there's even, like, this montage scene in the second act to where it totally, like, dilutes that sense of tension and that sense of horror and sense of terror that you were getting from the slasher character. I'm not going to spoil it, like, right here, right now, but just know that this montage kind of, like, changed the tone completely and made it to where it was just this kind of, like, fun, like, adventure for this main character. And it took a lot of the dread out for me, in my opinion, and it should have not been done. But yeah, the second act was just so mediocre. It was just, you could tell that the scriptwriter wrote everything up until that second act, and he just really didn't know what to do. It's like he wrote a script for like an hour movie, and he had to do something to make it to where this fit a full-length film. And that's just what it seems like. It seems like the second act is just him filling in stuff that we didn't really need. Like if you were to take out the second act of this movie and just make it to where the first act meets the third act, it would have made a much more consistent movie, and it would have been much more logical and less excessive, in my opinion. The third act of this film wasn't too bad. It was okay. I will say it was an okay third act. I actually thought it was a pretty great third act until it hit the last 15 minutes of the film, and then I just felt like it went like off the rails and did something that was really far-fetched and stupid, and some things didn't make sense or whatever. But I don't know. Besides that, I thought the third act was all right. That's why I said if you just connected the first act with the third act, you would have probably got a better film. But I mean, there's some redeemable things about this film. Sure, a lot of the positive things that I will have to say about this movie were already done in Groundhog Day, so it doesn't really do much for the film. But at least this film had a main character that was kind of a piece of shit at first. And then through this process of living every day and then having to deal with all these things that are happening in her life, she eventually realizes that, she's not a good person and she has to do things. She has to make amends. She has to set things right with her family and friends, or yada, yada, yada. And I'm not really spoiling the movie by saying this because, again, like, most people have seen Groundhog Day, and it's really Groundhog Day meets a slasher movie, even down to, like, the character and even, like, parts of the story. Like, it's almost paint by numbers like Groundhog Day. But the film at least is self-aware of this, and there is a line in the movie where the main character's boyfriend is like, you know what your scenario kind of sounds like to me? Kind of sounds like Groundhog Day starring Bill Murray. Have you ever heard of that movie? At that point, I was just like, all right, you know, awesome. Like, at least the film had the balls to open up and say, hey, this is a concept that we're kind of ripping off and has already been done, you know? But I mean, besides that, I mean, there's other positive things about it too. Like, I thought there was actually a few well put together scenes that actually did a great job at building tension. They actually used jump scares minimally in this film. They are in there, and some of them are annoying, but there are actually a nice handful of scenes where there is tension built, and it's not relieved by a giant loud-ass jump scare. It's actually relieved by something more clever, like a TV turning on or something. Like, it's not something that's, like, made to just, like, make you shit yourself or whatever. Like, there's actually a nice handful of scenes that tried and were effortful. But, I mean, overall, Sure, it exceeded my expectation because my expectation was this was going to be pure garbage, and it wasn't pure garbage. But it's still not a very good movie. It's a pretty average movie. If it wasn't for the second act being so inconsistent with its tone and its narrative and just so aimless, this movie would have probably gotten a better grade for me. But right now, I'm going to give Happy Death Day a C. I mean, one thing I'll say is that it's not really boring. I mean, you can sit through this whole movie and not really be bored. I mean, it does kind of hit a certain part where you just really kind of, you want this movie to wrap up, you know what I mean? But it's really not boring. Like, you could probably sit there and watch this with your casual friends, and, you know, y'all could probably have a good time. They might not like it either, but it's a light movie if you just want to have something there and you want to watch. I mean, that's all I can fucking really say about it. Well, thank you to everybody who clicked on this video to hear what I had to say about Happy Death Day. If you've seen Happy Death Day already, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below. And if you like this video, please give it a like and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the Misfit Pawn channel to be updated on more film-related content.
Bye!